I recently did a video on my home prepping organization, and in that video I had a segment there with regard to my prepping Scrum board. A Scrum board is basically a whiteboard that is a visual representation of the tasks or the work that you're actively working on. It originates from a software engineering methodology called Agile methodologies, which is a software engineering concept that's used for just getting work done. So you basically assign a bunch of tasks to people and they actively work on it using a Scrum board, and they move from left to right. So they're moving from to-do list to they're actively working on it to they're done with it. And that's just a visual representation to help you get tasks done very rapidly. So I thought this deserved its own dedicated video. So let's get started now with how to make your own prepping Scrum board. Let's get started. So the first thing that you're going to need to pick up is a whiteboard such as this. You'll probably want a larger whiteboard, like a 24 by 36 inch whiteboard. And you're going to be using this for your Scrum board. So you're basically going to have a bunch of sticky notes on here that you can move from column to column. Right now this is a completely blank whiteboard. We're going to fill it in with some tape and some lines for the various columns and the people that are actually going to be working on the task that you have. Scrum boards are used by companies all around the world. So Google, Facebook, Twitter, Amazon, Microsoft, you name it. Most likely the software development teams are using some version of a Scrum board. So again, it originates from a concept called Agile methodologies. We're not going to dive into that too much because I want to keep it focused on prepping. And I'm not going to go into too much details with regard to the difference between a Scrum board and a Kanban board. There's some slight differences with it. The main thing that I want to do is it's a good idea to have a visual representation of the work that you're doing for your prepping systems. Prepping is a very vast topic. You could really get off track if you're not staying organized with the tasks that you're working on. Just a bug out bag alone takes a lot of work. For myself, a bug out bag just isn't a backpack filled with random emergency preparedness supplies. I have everything organized into modules and highly organized so everything is in the exact spot and it's color coordinated and everything like that. If you try to tackle that just haphazardly, then it's gonna you're gonna lose track of the stuff that you're working on. So for a prepping Scrum board, for a bug out bag, I would have it divided into multiple stories, which is what it's called in software engineering. So you can have stories or tasks, and each one would be for a specific task for making your bug out bag. So some of it might be buy this equipment, and then a story could be as far as what module that you're working on. Maybe you're working on your water module or your food module or your shelter module. This breaks it up into a series of smaller bites. It's like eating an elephant, one bite at a time. If you try to take on the project all at once, it gets out of hand very quickly. But with a Scrum board, it helps you keep organized. It works for software engineering companies, and it also works for preppers, in my opinion. In my prepping video Scrum board, I have 4 columns. I have a to-do column, so that's basically a backlog of all the items or stories that I want to get done for this sprint. For my video projects, I keep it to 1-month sprints, although for your prepping projects, you may want to reduce it down to 2 weeks. I then move things over to a researching column. Now that's not with all Scrum boards. They don't all have a researching column. They usually move on to the next column, which we'll discuss next. But for my videos, I like doing some research on whatever I'm doing. So if it's a product review, I'll do a lot of research on the product. If it's a kit or something, I'll do some research of that, or I may be doing testing of it. Once it's at that researching column and I've done enough research on it, I'm ready to do the video, I move it over to the in progress column. So this means that I'm actively working on that particular project and I'm doing the filming for it, I'm doing the narrative of it, I'm doing the editing of it, you name it, everything that it takes to make a video to get it so it's live. So that's the in progress column. Once I'm done with the video, I take it from that in progress column and move it to the done column. And that means that it's done and it's just a visual representation that I actually finished the work, which is good for morale purposes. It helps keep you going. All right, let's keep getting stuff over to that done column. So again, moving from the to-do list to the researching to the in progress and then to the done. You want to try to do it in a reasonable time frame. So you don't want to put too many things in the to-do list that you'll never actually get to. You want to have it something that you think you could get done in a sprint or a single sprint, such as a 2-week sprint, or for my prepping videos, a 1-month sprint. For your prepping projects, I recommend having 3 columns. So you're going to have a column for your to-do list, everything that you want to have done in that sprint. You're going to want to have your in progress column, so you're actively working on it, and you want to have your done column, and that's going to be the visual representation that you actually finished a project from start to finish. And again, it's good for morale purposes. So again, we're going to have the to-do list or your backlog in progress, and done. So for prepping, you may be by yourself prepping, you may be married, but maybe your significant other doesn't like prepping, for example. But if you do have a team of preppers within your household, maybe you, your significant other, and maybe one of your children, you could each have a row then, and those rows are used for the individual people. So while you have your to-do list, your in progress, and your done column, you'll also have some rows for each individual person. So you'll have the Cliff column. You'll have the Cliff row, and then you'll have the wife row, and then you'll have the kid row. And everyone's going to be doing the same strategy. Again, you probably want to have a larger whiteboard than this one. This one happens to fit in the video. You're going to want to make some columns and rows on the whiteboard, so I recommend using 1-inch gaffer tape. And you're just going to use the gaffer tape to make those columns and rows on it, and it's easy to remove because it's gaffer tape, which is awesome. Next, you're going to need some sticky pads for writing down your various tasks. And with the sticky pads, I normally use a Sharpie marker for writing whatever it is that I'm going to be doing. So for example, maybe one story you might have for the month is buy $100 worth of canned food or something like that. So you would write that on the sticky pad. I've been known to have a little bit of OCD, so what I like doing for my Scrum boards is to use a black sticky pad and then a white label for it. And then I write with the black Sharpie on the white label and then put the white label in the center of the black sticky pad. I think it looks really nice. You could use that same strategy of using a white label on top of a label, and you could follow the color of prepping if you have various colored labels. So for example, you could have a blue label with the white sticker on it, and you could write on that. That could be for a water project that you're working on. Or you could have a red sticky note with the white label put on it, and then that could be for a first aid project. So you could also follow the color of prepping with your prepping Scrum board. You're also going to want to have some non-permanent markers that allow you to write on the whiteboard itself. So these are erasable. You could just write what the various columns are, for example. So you could write your to-do, your in progress, and your done columns at the top, and then you can write names for the various rows that you're going to have for the people that are going to help out with your prepping Scrum board. So again, a non-permanent marker. So let's make a prototype version of a prepping Scrum board really quick using this smaller whiteboard, and we're going to use our gaffer tape, we're going to use our labels, and we're going to indicate the columns and the rows. So let's use that 1-inch gaffer tape now and make all the columns and rows. All right, so here's our 3 columns. I'm actually going to make a thin row on top and then have the 2 for the 2 people that are going to be working on this prepping project. Here's that thin row for the to-do, the in progress, and the done. And there's our 2 rows. Now I think I'm going to do the same strategy over here on the side to have the names of the people that are working on the various tasks. And there we go, here's our prepping Scrum board now. Now let's label everything. And there we go, we have our labels. So we have our to-do, in progress, and done. And then we also have Cliff and Mrs. Urban Prepper for the people that are actually going to be working on this prepping Scrum board. So since this is a smaller prepping Scrum board for this video, I'm just going to give each one of us 2 tasks to work on for this sprint. So I provided information in the description box below for all the items that are used in this one. You want to have a specific size of the stickers to put on those labels, and I'll include that link in the description box. So let me write a few different stories that we're going to work on for this particular sprint. All right, so here's our 4 tasks that we have for this particular sprint. So I'm going to give these 2 to Mrs. Urban Prepper, and I'll take these 2. Again, these are hypothetical. So right now I'm going to just put those on the black sticky pads. All right, so I have them all done. Let's start putting them on the Scrum board. So for me, I'm going to have organized garage supplies using the color of prepping color system. And I'm also going to give myself make 3 raised garden beds for this sprint. And then for Mrs. Urban Prepper, I'm going to have her make a basic power outage kit. So she's going to get that one. And then we're also going to have buy $100 worth of canned meat. And so we're just going to put that there. So this is what's on our to-do list for this particular sprint. Now we're going to start actively working on the items. So maybe the first one I'm going to work on is making the 3 raised garden beds. I'm going to move it over there. So I haven't started this yet, but I am actively working on this. I'm going to buy the supplies and everything like that. Let's say that Mr. Urban Prepper is now working on power outage kit right there. So she's going to move it over there. So she's actively putting together all the supplies for it, gathering what we already have at the house, and purchasing anything for that. So let's say that maybe 5 days go by and we've actually finished the projects. So let's say I finished my 3 raised beds. So then I'm going to move it over to the done column. That means it's done and it's ready to go for in case of an emergency. Let's say that Ms. Urban Prepper, as she was working on it, there was some stuff that she couldn't get for this particular kit. Maybe it's sold out or something. So what we do in our team in software engineering is if we're blocked on something, that's a concept that, hey, I'm blocked, I can't move to the done column because I'm blocked for some unknown reason. So let's say something's out of stock. So what we normally do is we would move it to upside down. That means that it's blocked at this point. And so at this point, Ms. Urban Prepper could probably grab the next task that's in the list and then actively work on that. So another important concept with having a Scrum board is that in software engineering, you would have something called a daily stand-up meeting. So at the beginning of the day, everyone's going to get together, all the developers and engineers and stuff, they're going to get together and they're going to talk about everything that they're working on. They call it a stand-up meeting because it shouldn't be a long meeting that you'll want to sit down on. It should be a really quick meeting where you're able to stand up, look at the wall, and talk about all the tasks that you're working on. You can say, yeah, today I'm working on this, I'm blocked on this. And then if you're blocked, maybe someone's going to help you get unblocked. So if you're doing this for your prepping stuff, you could actually sync together. Hey, how's the raised bed going? Oh yeah, I just actually finished this. I'm going to move that to the done column. So oftentimes you want to do that in person in front of everyone. So for example, let's say I was working on this, I finished it yesterday, and then I was syncing with Mrs. Urban Prepper the next day. Hey, I finished that garden project. Let me move it over to done. And that visual representation helps you keep motivated to continue cranking out the tasks. So a couple other concepts in regards to agile methodologies, which relates to having a Scrum board, is having what's called a sprint planning meeting and a sprint retrospective meeting. So before even starting this, you have to figure out what tasks you want to work on. So that would be planned in something called a sprint planning meeting. You don't have to be so official when you're just doing prepping projects or video projects, but an overall, maybe meeting on Sunday, hey, what do you want to do for this week for our preps? Or what do you want to do this month for our prepping projects? And hey, I think we should make the raised bed garden, or I think we should do this. You'll just want to put all of those in what's called the backlog, and then the ones that you want to get done first, you're going to move into the to-do list for that sprint. So having some kind of sprint planning meeting is a good place where you can actually think about what you actually want to get done for your overall projects. A sprint retrospective meeting takes place after the sprint is done. So let's say the sprint's done, we worked on this, I got both of these done, and then let's see, Ms. Urban Prepper also got that done, but we weren't able to get that done. So what we do is kind of discuss what went well during the sprint, what was the problem. We'd say, hey, this one, we're out of this, maybe we should do this in the next sprint, or maybe we should just take it out of the next sprint and just in the overall backlog. We can't get to it because they're out of something like that. And you just kind of have a retrospective meeting. That doesn't have to be too formal either. In software engineering, it's going to be formal, where it's a whole multiple hours long because you're doing a lot of different tasks. But for your home preps, again, we're just doing this as a frame of reference. We're not going so official where we have Jira or something like that. So you could have at the end of your sprint, hey, the stuff went good. You did really good. Your raised beds looks awesome, Cliff. So stuff like that. It's meant to give props like the pros and cons, and if there's anything that was a problem, you could kind of address how it should be fixed. So that's going to do it for this video featuring how to make a prepping Scrum board. I hope that you guys enjoyed watching it. Again, this is used in software engineering. Basically, every company that's doing some kind of software is probably using some version of a Scrum board or a Kanban board for planning out and having a visual representation of all the various things that they're working on. So leave your comments below in the comment section regarding this video. Again, you'll probably want to have a much larger Scrum board, especially if you have a family or a group that's working on your overall projects. But it's a good way of having a visual representation to know what you're hoping to work on, what you're actively working on, and what you were able to finish in a given time set, which is called a sprint. So leave your comments below in the comments section, and I hope that this helps motivate you to make your own Scrum board for your various emergency preparedness projects. See you guys next time.